we heard today. Look at I got some people excited here. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers and Jeff Howe. This is On Texas Football. We have come to you guys live multiple times today, but when you keep getting good news, you got to reopen. You want to reopen the presents another time. And Texas just got its second boom of the day, and from its second 5-star of the day. We started this morning, roughly around 11:15. Tyler Atkinson out of Grayson, Georgia, committed to the Longhorns over Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, as well as Oregon. He is the nation's top linebacker. And then just about 15 minutes ago, James Johnson, defensive tackle out of Miami Northwestern High School, that's where he's going to play this year, flipped his commitment from Georgia to Texas. It is a day that I don't know that I've seen, but I was asked by one of our young men here that work with us, John Burrows, if we had ever known of 2 5-stars committing to the Longhorns in the same day. And I'm telling you now, guys, I go back 30 years, and I don't know the answer to that.
I got one.
Oh, wait, Jeff Howe does? Jeff, what do you got?
And I only remember this because I was dead tired when it happened. Jackson Jeffcoat, Jordan Hicks committed to Texas on the same day. So that's a future consensus All-American and a future 10-year NFL vet on the same day. So, hey, James Johnson and Tyler Atkinson are in pretty damn good company.
Nice. Jeff.
Hey, roll this tape. Rod B., you and I shot a commitment video for him a couple days ago because we kind of thought this might be coming. I'll just put it that way. You got a chance to look at James Johnson. Tell us what you thought of him, and tell folks what they're getting, because this is a guy I think that makes cornerbacks very, very happy, Rod.
Yeah, people throw around terms like war daddy pretty loosely these days, and game wrecker pretty loosely these days. No, those terms actually apply to James Johnson. He's easy to see on film. Just spot the offensive lineman that's going backwards. He is consistently resetting the line of scrimmage. He's got active, strong, heavy hands at the point of attack, and he's actually long limb too. Does a great job of keeping offensive linemen away from his body. But you talk about an explosive second and third step. We talk about the first step a lot of times with defensive linemen, but man, he has a powerful second and third step that really can drive offensive linemen back. And so there's no doubt about it. When you're looking at this guy, as a guy that can make plays in the backfield, be a disruptor, he can also stay in ground and stay in the point of attack if necessary, anchor down if he gets double teamed. Honestly, this guy is an absolute beast on the football field, man. Like I said, I fell in love just kind of watching these highlights, but there's no doubt consistently he is a guy that just wears out offensive linemen. I mean, he just imposes his will and dominates at the point of attack. So I love everything about the young man. I think Texas got themselves a real find. I mean, he is a star in the making. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, interior defensive lineman. They got Richard Wesley as a 5-star at edge. They got Tyler Atkinson at linebacker. That's a 5-star. They got Dia Bell. It's a 5-star. They're in for others as well. The Longhorn recruiting class right now is looking pretty sharp. Jeff Howe, you've been covering recruiting in the University of Texas for a long time as well. What do you have to say here now that Texas has 20 commitments, by the way, instead of the 19 we started with today around noon in Austin, Texas?
The amount of blue chip talent Texas is getting from across the country, specifically in the Southeast. Now, Bobby, you've been doing this longer than I have, but I can remember a time where I'd watch guys like, you think about like a Dwayne Robertson, a Marcus Stroud, John Henderson, these big, uber athletic, big defensive tackles from the Southeast. I mean, where do people like that come from? Like, where do you go get those guys? And now Texas is starting to get those guys. I'm not saying James Johnson is going to be one of those guys, like a couple of those guys at the top of the first round, but the uber athleticism at his size, and you throw Tyler Atkinson in there. I mentioned Jordan Hicks earlier. If I had to compare Tyler Atkinson to a former Texas linebacker, it reminds me a lot of Jordan Hicks, just because he can run, he's athletic, but how violent he is when he gets to the football. You throw James Johnson in there. We talked about it, Bobby. You've got, Dylan Berryman, Corey Wells. You got one is kind of a project guy, thinking Corey Wells. Dylan Berriman's more of an over-the-ball, big nose. But with James Johnson and Vonnie Cleveland, you got disruptors. Like, that's what you need. You need disruptors. And, Rod, we can get into it tonight on the live stream, but, I asked Sark today about, basically perimeter talent and recruiting bigger receivers and being stickier in man coverage. And they said, hey, it's a lot easier to get to the football when you got guys that can lock down in man coverage. And between the corners Texas recruited in the last class, and now we're seeing disruptors, certainly Johnson, Cleveland, Richard Wesley. Start talking about it today, building a roster to last, Bobby, and that's what I see. This is a roster that, if everything holds to form, I got a roster with some staying power and a roster that can compete at the top of the SEC for the foreseeable future. If you're not excited about Texas recruiting right now in the future of this program, I don't know what to tell you, because I've been following recruiting covering recruiting in the Texas market since about 2004, 2005. I've never seen Texas have a multiple-year run like this where they're recruiting this kind of talent. Bottom line, period.
I think that's fair, because, I mean, look, Mac was very selective, but he was actually more selective and hard on who he offered earlier in his career than he was later. And so, Jeff, to your point, you've been 04, 05. I've been following Mac since 97, 98, and even the other guys before that. And my point on this to yours is that, look, there was a year where they got Chris Sims and Corey Redding. There's a year where they got two or three, big. What's happening right now is the overall recruiting classes are much more, and I don't want to use the wrong word here, Rod, because I don't want to, say something untoward of a former player, but it just feels more like the 1 through 3 of this class. If you're at a position, it ain't very far down the list. You know what I mean? Whereas sometimes they were bringing in these guys. Yeah, there's a big drop, and this is a big one. Obviously, James Johnson today. Look at this, Aloha Traveler, making a sonic boom today. Woo! Back in the helmet. It certainly looks like Sark and the staff are now concentrating their efforts on defense and soon to be RB. No blanks given on SEC Media Days. How about that? I mean, think about that today. Kirby Smart goes out there around 9:30 this morning, Central Time. By 11:15, he finds out he lost the number 1 player in the state of Georgia for the second year in a row to the University of Texas. That's 2 years in a row, by the way. He's lost the number 1 player in the state of Georgia. Then he wakes up, he goes home, probably gets back to Athens around 4 o'clock, and gets a phone call and says, well, I just lost the number 1 defensive tackle in the country, in James Johnson as well. While Sark's at the microphone and Arch Manning's getting a media scrum the size of a Super Bowl there. Look, I think that we talk about this, and it is crazy. Aloha Traveler, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate it. It's just a fun time right now to be a Longhorn fan. This gives the Longhorns 20 commitments, as I mentioned, and I feel really good about where Texas sits with Derek Cooper, the running back out of Miami. And out of Hollywood, Florida, just north of Miami at Chaminade Madonna High School. He will announce on Sunday. That being said, and I've said this on multiple recruitments, we are still 4 or 5 days away from that announcement. Anything can and will change in that interim. So we have to wait and see what occurs. But Texas could get to 21 as soon as this weekend. We'll see where that goes. But Texas right now, guys, clearly on a recruiting heater after, I've got to say this, Jeff, after Texas spent 2 weeks getting bludgeoned by some reports and by some folks saying, oh, they're never going to make it back. NIL's changed the game. Texas isn't going to do it. And now all of a sudden you look up and this is what happened. Derek Weiser says, I'm being greedy. Can we get another boom? maybe so. But we shall see. What do you think about where Texas was the last 3 weeks, Jeff? And then going into this week where they've gotten 2 5-stars in a single day. What is the lesson to learn, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just speaks to the fact that regardless of what happens in a recruitment, Sark and company are going to continue to recruit guys that they feel are difference makers that could put them in a position to win an SEC championship, get to the CFP, and compete for a national championship, they will recruit those guys through the whistle. And I guarantee you, James Johnson, Tyler Atkinson, they're going to continue to recruit these guys like they're uncommitted. So long gone are the days when you could get your commitments and then just, boom, kind of hang back and wait until signing day. That's not the case anymore. So just like Texas has been able to come in and stay on guys and eventually get guys to flip or get them in the fold, man, Georgia and Florida and Alabama and Ohio State are going to continue to do the same. I think, too, Bobby, there's something to be said for something you mentioned on the site and here on the channel. You can look at those head-to-heads Texas lost. Not all of those recruiting battles are created equal.
Yep.
You know, there's a difference between Texas losing a battle for, you know, let's say Jalen Lott and losing a battle for, you know, I don't know, Hezzy Kent, for just throwing a prospect off the top of my head, where, you know, Texas really didn't have a chance going in. But I think, again, credit Sark, credit Kenny Baker for the job he's done. Everybody's ready to cast Kenny Baker aside at this time last year. And he's been on a heater, you know, going back to flipping Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma, and now what he's doing in this class. I think his ties in the state of Georgia are big. And again, you know, Sark reiterated today something that he said at the Touchdown Club at Houston Luncheon back in May. Everybody looked at the negative about Texas going to the SEC, how much harder it was going to be to recruit. Sark looked at it as a positive and said, hey, we could go into Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, and those kids now have a reason to come to Texas. So the fact that you got your foot in the door, that's a really big first step that other Texas coaches haven't had. But I think you've got a staff that's got things headed in the right direction. They know Sark knows how to build a roster. And more importantly, Bobby, I hope the prospects are seeing the foresight Sark has. He knows how to maintain a roster. Texas hadn't had a lot of attrition. So it's just a tip of the cap to Sark and how he's building this program.
Y'all are probably going to talk about that a little bit more tonight or again tomorrow morning on Coffee and Football, because Sark talked about roster construction this afternoon at SEC Media Days, Jeff, and did a really good job of articulating his thought process. Rod, I had a question for you, because this is I spoke to Anthony Hill. Jerry and I interviewed Anthony Hill this afternoon. We'll have something up for you guys tomorrow on that. But and we talked to him individually. And I asked Anthony, when it gets rolling like this, because Anthony was a figure in the Tyler Atkinson recruitment. Okay. So when they start, when these guys recruit one another, that's when the snowball really gets going downhill. I think back to all those Miami teams in the 90s, they all recruited each other. The coaches didn't recruit those players. The players recruited the other players. Now, that doesn't mean that you know, the Kenny Bakers or the Sarks or Brandon Harris, Chris Gilbert, et cetera, don't play a role here. That's not what I'm getting at. But, you know, peer to peer, when a player starts recruiting you, it's a different sort of one-to-one that I think can sometimes equal 3 for the teams that get that kind of buy-off from their own roster. What do you make of that? Because that's what I told Ant Hill I see here happening here, and that was before I talked to him before James Johnson flipped. I was talking to him about Tyler Atkinson, right? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree, Bobby. I've said for years, the best recruiters are the players, right? Because number one, they don't have to operate or abide by any NCAA rules or limitations. Once a player gets your number and your digits, he can hit you up anytime and talk to you about anything. And you're right. There's a certain level of trust, right, that you have a player to player talking to you about your position coach, or talking to you about the future of the program. And we know that's important because Tom Herman didn't have that toward the end of his tenure. I don't think Mac Brown had it, guys, honestly, at the end of his tenure, where guys can passionately and genuinely sell the program because they feel that strongly about it. I do think you have that with Sark. Sark has talked about the coach. I think when Mac had the program in his prime, I was one of those guys. I knew that, right? Prior to 2010 and falling off the cliff, I think you had a lot of guys selling that program to their former high schools and their former coaches. And then, so I'm with you. I think that's really important. And I think right now for Sark, there is no doubt that the buy-in from the current roster has been able to help sell the program to those other guys who are, potentially whether it be transfer portal guys or whether guys they're acquiring through traditional recruiting. And something else I'll bring up just to piggyback on kind of what Jeff was talking about and something you brought up, Bobby. I think if you give Sark a lot of credit, I think it is really compelling how he, in terms of roster construction, how he has decided to go outside the state of Texas and build this roster in some really key areas in premium positions in places that Texas just really hadn't had success in recent history. Miami, Atlanta. I've been on here on this channel talking about Atlanta for the last 2 years. I tell people Atlanta is the new Mecca of football talent in this country. No metro area in the country is producing talent at the level of Atlanta. DFW, think of what you will, it ain't even close. Atlanta's actually beating DFW by like 4 or 5 guys per year in the NFL draft. So the key is, and Sarkis saw this, obviously, look at the way he's building his staff with several assistant coaches and administrators who have, or front office personnel who have ties to Atlanta. And now you're getting guys like Tyler Atkinson, best players in that Atlanta metro area, or at least in the country, that are from that Atlanta metro area. So I think that's where I give Sark a ton of credit. It's places where Texas never really had inroads. They never really had a ton of connections. And now and they've always been hotbeds, right? Always been very fertile recruiting grounds. We talked about Louisiana for years, talked about Miami, talked about Atlanta lately, and Sark is tapping into all those hotbeds right now. He's pushing all the right buttons. I'll give Sark a ton of credit for that. I'm not saying that I saw it coming beforehand, but I figured that now you're going to start seeing teams focus more on these metro areas. All right, with recruiting becoming more nationalized, there's no doubt that Sark has decided, no, we are going to have market share in these major metro areas. Atlanta being one, we know DFW. I think he's trying to get in there to Miami a little bit now more than before.
Hey, what would make you think that? All he's done in Miami thus far in Miami is he's got the number 1 quarterback in the country committed to Diabell, and now he's got the number 1 defensive tackle in the country committed from Miami. Or suburban Miami. Mm-hmm. And then third, he's got possibly the number 1 running back ready to decide on Sunday, and he's in the very middle of that, and he's from Broward County in Miami area. So you're right, Miami, Atlanta, etc. Right now, Longhorns loving what's got to be going on. Because
the Carolinas, Bobby, lately have been heating up in some of those metro areas and got some more Matthews out in Carolina areas. It's Sark is, I'm saying he's dialed in, guys, on recruiting. I know last month there was a lot of disrespect towards Sark in recruiting, but I'm telling you guys, he is pretty dialed in. I think we can trust that Sark's going to get the job done in recruiting, no matter how it looks in June or early July.
Jeff, I think you had something you want to say. What were you going to say earlier?
I'll throw in 2. We talk about major metro areas. I know it's not quite the hotbed it used to be, but man, you get Richard Wesley out of Southern California. Like, I think I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's very hard to build a roster to go win a national championship in college football today, exclusively relying on the state of Texas. And Texas, they'll still get kids from DFW. They'll still get kids from Houston, but to what you guys were talking about a minute ago made me think, Bobby, we used to talk about in terms of, man, once you get that first kid from South Dallas, can you, are you going to be able to recruit kids from DISD or Duncanville or Lancaster or where, those metro schools? If you get a kid from Katy, can you go into then, Fort Bend ISD and take care of that side of Houston where Texas has struggled over the years? Now we're looking at the bigger terms. If you look at the state of Georgia or Atlanta Metro, all Tyler Atkinson would have to do, go ask Justice Terry what it's like at Texas. Mm-hmm. And now if you've got guys from South Florida, a kid can come in and ask Diabell or ask James Johnson what it's like at Texas. Or if you're from Southern California, ask Richard Wesley what it's like at Texas. So as soon as Sark can hold on to these guys, I love the peer recruiting. I think the parents too, the Texas, it seems like Texas getting the right kind of families too in the program. Rod, again, it reminds me a lot of when you were there. A lot of the families really big. So it's reminding me a lot of what it looked like when Mac was building toward that national championship. But man, I'm telling you, the talent level it's been kicked up a notch. And you look at what Kirby's been doing at Georgia, what Urban Meyer and then Ryan Day have done at Ohio State, what Nick Saban did at Alabama. That's the kind of roster Sark is doing. That doesn't guarantee you anything, but Bobby, you said in the car ride back over here. Football is a lot more fun when you're doing it with really good players and at all positions from all parts of the country. Sark's going to be doing it for the next few years with really good players.
I think that's part of it. And you want to be a great team, you got to have great players. It's the Jimmies and Joes, not necessarily the X's and O's. And what I would say to this also, guys, 3 of those 4 5-stars, guess what? On defense. Jeff, when we were at media days today, what did Sark say? Defense wins championships. He said it point blank any minute. We got a couple other super chats to get to here real quick. Thank you so much, Josh Manning. Texas may be getting dangerously close to being the 200-pound gorilla that sucks oxygen out of the room. I don't know, but I think it's possible. I think it's possible that Kirby Smart might agree with you when it comes to recruiting. All right, Bevo Holic. Appreciate you guys coming on live when news breaks. Love it. Bevo Holic, I want to say this. Special thanks to our producer, Matt Hutchison. When I tell you that Matt Hutchison has not gotten much sleep the last 24 to 48 hours, he's the one that's making all of this happen when all of us are on at different times. Matt is a great guy and a good person here with us as well. Edgar Padilla, to the Sark doubters, 2 consecutive Final Fours with major holes in the roster and wild success since 57 to 56 versus Kansas in 21. Perspective is important. Best time to be a Horns fan since the aughts. Hook 'em from Edgar.
Yep, he's right.
Rod, you've been
best time.
You were a sideline reporter for the Longhorns.
Mm-hmm.
You saw Texas go from one of the elite programs in the country, right, to the denouement, I guess is a good way to put it, of Texas football under Mac Brown. What is your perspective on where it's placed?
I do think they're close. I remember when we were close, and I was actually there as a player in 02. We won 11 games in 01 and 02, and I remember we were close. Number one, because our practices were just as hard, if not harder than the games, because Mac had stacked that roster with so much NFL talent. You couldn't help but go up against an NFL guy every day. Guy that's going to be playing in the league, right? I went against Roy Williams every day, made me better. And I think that's where they are now. Where they're second, even the second team reps, right? And your third team reps, you're still going up against guys who are going to play in the league, NFL caliber guys. Can't help but get better in that way. And the culture, to your point about, how the players are selling the program themselves and the buy-in. Mac had that culture. The culture peaked in 05, in my opinion, because Mac let it be a player-led team. Mac was a kind of a control freak when he first got the job, wanted to control everything. Guys can't wear earrings. Guys can't do this. And then Mac, he built the team so well, he finally figured out the best thing for him to do was to let the team, let the leaders of the team, let them step up and let it be their team. And from what I hear from these young guys when I talk to them, they're recruiting natural leaders, guys who relish in those roles and who can't wait to be leaders of the team and set the example by the way they work, by the way they play, by the way their approach to the game. Who you are some of the time is who you are all the time. And they're close, guys. They are. Well, we know that, right? They got to the Final Four the last 2 years. But I'm telling you from somebody behind the scenes that they got the right mentality and they got the right kind of guys. They got for Texas guys, not at Texas guys there. And this is also part of why the recruiting, the method may not go as well as you would like it. You may not get the boom, boom, boom after boom, 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 but he's getting the right guys in, the guys who actually are going to be here for the right reasons. And I think that's why it takes him a little bit longer than just in June, getting all the guys you want in early July. I mean, you're getting some damn good players, but I think he wants to vet guys. I think guys will be thoroughly vetted. And when they're thoroughly vetted, that's when he wants to be a part of this program and this culture.
Sark even said it today. I mean, he talked about in the recruiting process, Texas doesn't lead with the money. And he admitted, hey, we get to that part last in the recruiting pitch. And he admitted that probably hurts us with some kids.
Yep.
But over the long haul, you're going to get the share of the guys that you want that are culture fits, that are talented enough to help you. And I'm paraphrasing Sark here, but he said, if the kid asks you about the money first, even though he may be a really talented kid, if you're just looking for a bag, That's the kid that's probably in the portal in 18 months. And so getting a kid that washes out of the program really quick, not only does it hurt you because you lost him, but you also lost out on somebody that might have been just as good or better that you didn't recruit. So I'll say this, Rod, we talked about this. Bobby, I don't know if you and I talked about this. And Mac Brown did a hell of a job at Texas. Like, it's one of the golden eras of Texas football. But I really think with the way Sark is running this program and the trajectory Texas is on, I think Sark can maximize Texas in a way that hasn't been done since Coach Royal in the Wishbone era. In terms of taking Texas, maximizing squeezing every drop out of that orange, out of that lemon, and seeing Texas really be the tippy top program in the country. I really think Sark has a chance to do that.
I will say this, and I talked to a long time. Y'all know a friend of mine is Les Koenig, the former Longhorn wide receiver back in the 70s and early 80s. It went on to be an offensive coordinator for Dennis Franchione at Alabama, TCU, Texas A&M, then came back as an assistant at Texas. I will say this. So even with Mac, and Mac had some outrageously talented teams at the top. The top 15 players on Mac's teams in the heyday, they were all 7, 8, 9, 10-year NFL guys. Right? I mean, Rod, they had 1 through 15. You got dudes, right? What Sark is doing is a lot like what actually Fred Akers did. And that's not a good name to some people in Texas football, but hear me out on this. I mean, what did they have one year? 17 players drafted back when there was a 12-round draft. Yeah. These teams are becoming more talented in that way. There's more depth as well as the high-end players. So you have not only do you have a Kenneth Sims who goes number 1 overall, for example, right? When he was playing for Fred Akers, but you have the DBs and everybody else that goes as well. I think it's more akin to what Ken Dabbs, the former recruiting coordinator at Texas at that time, as well as Fred Akers were building until some things happened there that kind of hurt. But long story short, I think, Jeff, that's my take on it. It is 1 to 85. Yeah, Texas has a chance to have its strongest roster.
It's a good point. And, like that.
Yeah, I mean, you get what I'm saying, Rod? It's like
the second and third string have never been this strong at Texas. Like your third and fourth string guys have never been this strong.
Yeah, I'm not saying Arch Manning's better than Vince Young.
I got you.
That's not what I'm not trying to say. That
the third string quarterback is better than what Nordco.
Exactly. That's my point. Is Matt, and I believe this. Mac did a great job. He put it on 15 to 20 guys a year, and then built a team around it, right? That could kind of support those and do the right thing and all that stuff. But I feel like what's happening right now, Sark's taking it to he's more in that Nick Saban, Pete Carroll mode of give me them all, and then let's figure it out when they get here, and let's go play ball. And we're going to put them in this ecosystem and see what they can do. And that's
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm thinking. What were you saying, Jeff?
Yeah, the exciting thing too, real quick, is today any of the players, Michael Taft, Ant Hill, Arch, and even Sark, how many young guys got mentioned? Even though you've got one of the most talented rosters in the country, how often Bo Barnes or Kalik Lockett, Jamie French, James Simon, those young corners, Cade Phillips and Grayson Littleton, how many young guys' names came up as guys that can contribute this year? Texas doesn't need freshmen to contribute this year, but some of these guys are just going to be that good that they're going to demand snaps. Like you're on the cusp of being. I think you're on the cusp of elite, and when you're elite, that means you should go into every year thinking you're going to be playing for a national championship.
Yeah. All right. A couple more questions, then we'll get out of here. Rod and Jeff are going to be back. I think CJ Vogel going to join him for the Tuesday night live stream as well. They're going to be breaking down what they heard from Sark as well. Let's get to these super chats real quick. Bobby and Jeff, how tall is Anthony Hill? Man carries 240 pounds. Well, looks like he got tall. 6'2" and change, maybe 6'3". But to your point, he looks like he carries he doesn't carry 240 like I carry for 240. Let's just call that what it is. All right, here we go. UT alumni, thanks for the super chat. I'm not sure you put in a super chat. If you did, we will come back to it maybe in the 7 o'clock hour for the live stream because I can't find it right now. Rich Money Cash saying August 1 is the new December in recruiting. A lot of truth to that because look, that first week of December, second week of December, signing day now. These teams want to be not necessarily done with recruiting by August 1, but I think every college coach knows that while recruiting goes on, they got to get their mind on the field and get ready for football. Longhorns right now, 46 days away from college football getting started up in Columbus for them. Longhorn Frenzy here. Bobby, OTF is killing it. I know I have said it multiple times, but y'all truly are the best in the business. Thank y'all for what you do for us fans. Hook 'em, Longhorn Frenzy. We appreciate it. Hopefully our interest and enjoyment of Longhorns is contagious, and you guys see that in our reporting because we really do enjoy talking about the Longhorns here with you guys. Last one. This is from Casey before we get going. How is Texas looking for Devon Benjamin? That's the defensive back out of Southern California. He is announcing his decision on August 2nd. On August 2nd. All right. Before we close out, Matt, if you don't mind, would you put up that the 20 commitments now Texas, on the week or on the cycle for this year? The Longhorns now at 20 commitments with the additions tonight and this afternoon and morning, I guess, of 2 5-stars. James Johnson, defensive lineman out of Miami Northwestern High School. That's where he'll play his ball his senior year. And Tyler Atkinson out of Grayson, Georgia, who announced his decision on the Pat McAfee show. It has been a 2 for Tuesday for the Texas Longhorns. Tell you what, guys, you guys have a good one. Big week ahead. Jeff, as well as CJ and Rod will be back here at 7 o'clock to talk a little bit of Longhorn football, break down their reaction to Steve Sarkisian, Michael Taft, Arch Manning, and Anthony Hill and what they had to say at SEC Media Days. We'll let you guys go. Y'all have a good one. Hook 'em horns. Great day to be a Texas Longhorn.
Yes, sir.